Hello everyone, and welcome to my last webinar. Today we will go through the assignment together. I'll test the page live, describe my findings, and I'd love for you to add your thoughts in the chat or in the Q&A section if you want to stay anonymous. And yeah, I'll also show a short example of what the final audit could look like. First, I want to go through some housekeeping. When downloading the slides afterwards, you can find the testing website in my CodePen. Open it in debug mode, meaning you should first copy my pen, and also you can find the example audit. It's an extract. These will be a few issues we will find together, maybe adding more from your side. Since this will be the last session, I highly recommend you to, if you live in Vienna or be nearby, in a few weeks, that you join the DevFest in Vienna. It's Vienna's biggest developer conference, and it's a GDG community event, which will happen in autumn all over the world. Ours is in TU Vienna Technical University, and last year I was the only female speaker and also the only one talking about accessibility, so I'm especially happy to say that this year there will be 6 women and 4 people are going to talk about accessibility. So this is a huge success, I think, for the GDG group in Vienna, and also for everything I did in the last year regarding accessibility, bringing it more into the community with my webinar series. You can also find all the session, as usual, infos and materials at the GDG Vienna website or Accessibility First. So for the GDG Vienna, this is where you assigned for the event. You can simply go down there, there are already the slides, and you will also find the recording. Or on my blog, Accessibility First, go to webinar series, and you will find the slides as well as the recording added here as links. Then I would say, let's get started. So I opened my pen in the debug mode to get rid of all the CodePen stuff, which throws quite a few errors. And we, of course, want to focus on the real application. So after I first check to see what's going on with the website or what does the website look like, I always start using automatic testing tools. In my case, I almost always use the XDevTools, just to get a bit of an overview on what's going on the page. So when we scanned the page, it shows that there are 15 errors. All of them are moderate, meaning they do not fall under the WCAG guidelines. So these are considered best practices, but I suggest to still fix them, even though especially because they are even more easier to fix than the ones who are falling under the guidelines. But yeah, we should fix them all. Just do it. The testing tool shows us 3 different kinds of errors. Document should have one main landmark, page should contain a level 1 heading, and all page content should be contained by landmarks. So in my opinion, when you read this, these are really easy things to fix. And yeah, let's look into the source code, what's happening. Why is the tool complaining about landmarks? We can see that in the body element, I cannot see as a direct child a header, a main, or a footer landmark. I can only see divs. Divs with a class of header, main, and footer, which means that the developer already knows that this is some specific content within a certain container, but they did not use the semantic HTML. They used a div instead. So the fix for this would be, if it's a simple app, to simply change the div to the header element and the div into a main element and the footer element. In some cases, and this is only applicable when there's no other way to change it, you can also use ARIA, the corresponding ARIA elements, meaning the role attribute because sometimes, especially when it comes to legacy code, it's not that easy to simply change an element, because oftentimes the styling or the JavaScript is using the HTML element and changing it to the main or to the footer would destroy lots of things, which makes it difficult. But in these cases, we can use the role attribute and assign the roles of main or content info or of banner to these elements to make them screen reader accessible. Do not forget that in this case, okay, these are landmarks, but in general, that only because you assign a role, it does not make it accessible, for example, for keyboard. So you should still check with screen reader if everything works as expected. So we would have fixed already two things, because we will now have a main landmark, also a footer landmark, as well as the header landmark. And for the H1, I would assume when coming to the page that join the club is an heading level number 1, but it's not. It has a class of H1. So again, the developer realizes that this should be an H1 because they style it this way and give it the class, but this does not make it an H1. So the styling alone does not make an element anything. It's the semantic HTML tag or the correct tag to make the element what it should be. So of course, join the club should be the H1 element. When a screen reader user comes to the page, this will be announced. Join the club. Since we're already here talking about headers, and because we are finished with the automatic testing, at least using XDevTools, I will check, because now I'm curious about headings, what's with the other headings. We could inspect each element I consider an heading, or we could also use one of the bookmarklets I showed you in previous webinars, like the headings maps. And we can see there are no landmarks at all, as we already noticed and checked, and there are also no headings. So we need headings to structure the page. It also helps screen reader users navigate faster and understand the layout of the page and what's going on the page. So headings are crucial to structure the page, and only from the visuals or how I would understand the page, this would be an H1 because it's the name of the whole page. Rare medical conditions would be an H2. It would be the only section or maybe one of many sections coming on one page. And inside the H2, we have 3 different parts, which should start with an heading level number 3 for Mermaid syndrome, maple syrup urine disease, Klinefelter syndrome. And I personally would also put these 3 into a list element. Let's see if the developer also did it, because there are also some bullet points. But no, so they are not in a list. Also, this styling comes from the bold tag and not because these are heading level 3. And also the bullet is integrated using before, which could be a problem because some screen reader read the before element, and this could be irritating because why is there a bullet when it's not a list, first of all, and also there's only one paragraph. So by using a bullet point when there is only one point, I would say remove the bullet point, or if you want to have it for styling reasons, then add it using CSS, only like the background image or something. And I would also suggest putting these 3 parts into an ordered list item. When I look at the page, I would also say that the color seems quite light. I assume that since there was no error shown with XDevTools, that it meets the WCAG criteria, but I would suggest making it a bit darker, so we are sure that many people can read it. Let's check with the color contrast checker how far away we are from the guidelines or the minimum threshold. And okay, it does meet the threshold, but this is it's already on the limit. So I would use the slider and put it at least that it is above 7 and use this color instead. The next thing which would come up into my mind would be the image. Images are often miss alternative text or do not have a good alternative text. So let's check this image. It's implemented as an SVG, as we can see, because there's so much content inside the SVG. And yeah, we do miss the title element. Also, there's no URL label or anything. It also does not have a row of image, so we could put alt text or anything. Also, checking it with the accessibility properties, we can also see that the text label is missing. So I would suggest adding the title if you want to make it in descriptive image, or putting a row of image on it, using an URL label, and keep it empty if you want to make it just purely decorative. The visuals of the page are also a bit off, I would say, because there's only the image on the upper right. But this is only a design decision. This does not has anything to do with accessibility, but let's take a look how it looks like on mobile. On mobile, the image is gone. And I was very happy to see that some of you have sent me their audit, some in more detail, some just an overview, which is totally fine, because I was interested in what issues you will find and why you think these could be issues. And one or two attendees pointed out that the image is not visible anymore on mobile, and this is actually not an accessibility issue, because this is very common that on mobile you have it's a small screen, so you skip unnecessary things, and in this case this would be the image. It does not have any descriptive for users, so they would better understand the page. It was decorative only. When we make it even smaller, we can see that there is a design and accessibility issue, because now these two overlap. You can also check for overlapping if we use the zoom. Zoom is important because meeting WCAG AA criteria means the user is able to zoom in 200% and still can read and access array content, which seems to be the case. If you want to make it AAA conform, the user should be able to zoom into 400, and now we get the issue we also saw on mobile version. The rest still seems to be quite good. But I also realize on the text in the paragraph that the content is justified. It looks quite neat, but we should stick to left aligned or right aligned depending on the language or script, because as you can see, using justify in the text alignment, it often creates wider white space than it should. And this makes it difficult for people with visual impairments, or also people with reading disabilities, to read in one flow, to realize is the sentence maybe already over, to miss something, makes it difficult to read. So it's better to stay the text aligned to left and avoid using justify content. What I also read in one of your audits is about the navigation. Let's take a closer look. So the navigation itself is also a landmark. It doesn't matter if you put the navigation as its own landmark. In this case, it should be inside the heading because we also have the logo, but there are also websites where the navigation is above the header or this is the header alone, the logo, and below there comes the navigation. So it can be a landmark on its own, or it is included in the header. And one issue was that the link for the logo is not inside the navigation. First of all, div is again used instead of the HTML tag nav to make it a landmark, and also helps screenreader users navigate easier. And these are also different kind of navigation. So this is the navigation you can go through the whole website, while the logo itself, if it is a link, not every website uses as a homepage link, but it brings you always back to the homepage. So this is not part of the navigation, go somewhere else, but brings you back home. So this is totally fine that it is not inside the navigation landmark. Also, I see that there is an image and it has an alternative text, go to the homepage. In general, this is okay to have the alternative text as accessible name. So you could either leave this empty because we do not want the image itself is not a descriptive image. It is used as a link, and it can either stay empty and we put an URL label on the A tag, or we could go with the alternative text, which I would do because we already have to use the alt attribute and it would make it easier to write. A reason why you would use something different than the alternative text would be if you have internationalization, meaning you have different languages on one page, because the alternative text will not change the language. So if this is written in English and it always stays in English, or you implemented something different through some data where you also store already the different languages to the specific image, but you could also use in this case like URL labeled by and have the text somewhere within the element. Also, the medical mysterious club. It is part of the logo, but this does not mean that this has to be part of the link, because the link does not bring you to the medical mysterious club. We are already on it. The link on the image is to go back to the homepage wherever you are currently. The medical mysterious club can be implemented as an SVG. Some companies do this, or this is simply a text. It is also not a heading or something, because the main purpose of this page, the information is set in the title or in the heading level 1. And also in my example, we have a title on this page and it's called Inaccessible Landing Page, which is of course not the correct title for this page. It should be something like Join the Club and Align Medical Mysterious Club. But this title is auto-generated because it's the name of the pen. So this is kind of a bug, but it was not intended. I called the pen in the accessible landing page, and this is what we get in the title. We could also see that the subscribe button and the subscribe button here look the same, but Of course, these are not the same thing, because hitting the subscribe button here should send you to the page where you can subscribe. We are already on the page, because this page, the content tells us that we can subscribe to something, like in this case, the newsletter. While the subscribe button is, or should be, obviously a button also under the hood, because it helps us submit the email form when we enter our email address here. Let's look what the code says. It's a link, which we expect it to be, even though they look the same, but this is also a design decision. It's not really a bug, because it's a design decision that we need some action buttons, action items, and subscribe would be this kind of action. And the subscribe button here is a button. I'm very surprised. It is a button. It also has the right type of submit. This is good to see, because this is some of the common mistakes using button or using a link instead of button. So I'm very happy to see that the button is a button with its correct type. But when I see one element above it, I am already alert to the tab index -1, because this is a form field we should be able to fill in, and with tab index -1 we will never get to it using the keyboard. I also see that there is no label for the input element, which is not good. We should always use a label to the input field, and also a visible label. So a placeholder is not a visible label. One reason is that most screen reader skip it, so the user does not know what we have to fill in, even though it's getting better. So the browser nowadays is getting better in reading placeholder text, but in my case, the browser is just nice enough to make up for our mistakes, which should not be their concern. We should implement it correctly and use a visible label. Another problem with the placeholder is that when the user clicks in and starts writing, then the placeholder is gone, and maybe I currently forgot what should I put in there. And then I would have to delete everything to see the text again. So after some checking, automating and also manual, I want to go over with my keyboard to see if everything is accessible using the keyboard. And I realized that there's no focus at all. But I can tell that there is focus in general. We can simply not see it, because we can see it on the bottom left that something shows up. Now we are on Sire Nomalia, and I'm wondering why, because there is no link at all. Oh, but now when I hover over it, I can see that the arrow changed to the pointer finger. Let's take a look. This word is actually a link. The same goes for maple syrup, and maybe also, let's see, also this one. So these are actually links. There's one issue with this, or two. Of course, the focus is not visible. It seems that there's no visible focus on any of these elements. Nope. And for these three elements, these are links within a paragraph, and they have to meet color contrast against two things. First of all, against the background, it has to be, as the paragraph text as well, 4.5 to 1. But it does also have to have enough color contrast against the color of the paragraph text. Should be 3 to 1. So using a darker blue or darker red, and additionally underline it to make it so that we do not rely only on color, would make this issue gone. I also think that when writing into the field, the text is very small, maybe 12 or even lower, 10 pixels. We should aim for 16 pixels at least, maybe even higher, to make it more readable for people with lower vision. And since we were on links, I also see that the last part, learn more, would be a field for descriptive links. So even though the link is underlined, which distinguished from the paragraph text, the user will not understand what to learn more about when the user is navigating via links, which will we do when using the screen reader. Let's check another thing again, because we were on it before. This is the burger menu, and it also does not receive any focus because we are now in the index and now on the disease again, but we can operate it using the mouse. Oh, and when opening it, I can also say that most likely it does not meet the color contrast. Let's check this first before going to the burger menu again. We have this turquoise and white, and yeah, and we fail. But the good thing is, when using the color contrast checker, that we can use the slider to go until we would pass. So this turquoise would meet at least the Wicca criteria, would fulfill it, so we could use this color and make this issue go away. But now to the burger menu. It is an image, which would be quite okay, but it also has an alt text, and meaning that this is the text the screenreader user will get, and open for a drop-down menu will stay open for drop-down menu even though it is already open. So the first thing, or the first mistake here is already that the developer did not use a button for several reasons. First, if they would have used the button element, it makes it keyboard focusable and accessible. So they forgot to write JavaScript to make it keyboard accessible. And then they would have to write different functionality, because a button has built-in functionality, meaning a user using the keyboard can open and close it using the the spacebar or the enter, and also close it using the escape key. And none of this works because this is not a button and the events are not written for it. So all the screenreader user, for example, gets this open for drop-down menu even though it's open. There's also no ARIA attribute like the expanded one, ARIA expanded, if it's also true. So the user would get a notification when they click on it that now the drop-down is open and now it's closed again. So changing the alternative text, or even better, keep it empty, create a button, put an ARIA label on it, and also use the ARIA expanded if true or false. The last things we didn't check are these ones, because I think that the color contrast is very low. And the reason for, you could also put it inside a navigation, making the second navigation, like navigation for soldiers. This is totally common. The reason why it was not covered in the automatic testing tool could be that for the SVG, we do have a title at least connected on our Twitter page, but there is the color, and as far as I'm concerned, we are not even close meeting color contrast. As far as I'm concerned, since it is the color comes from fill, this could be the reason why it was not found by the automatic testing tool, that this is an issue. So for graphics, you have to have at least 3 to 1 against this background. This would be this one. So we have to use a gray at least from this value. I think this was mostly it when it comes to automatic testing tool and manual testing. One user also mentioned that the target size is maybe the touch target size is maybe too small, but to fulfill, I mean, the bigger the better, of course. To fulfill WCAG, it has to be at least 24 to 24 or 24 times 24 pixels, and we do have 30 times 34, so it would be enough. If you want to aim for AAA, then you have to go with 44 times 44 pixels. Yes, I assumed that I covered almost every issue. Please feel free to text me if you find something different, or if you do not agree on my explanation. I'm always happy to learn or to correct myself or to discuss further why we think differently. This is important, I think. I will now use the screen reader to check what can be heard and how the voiceover rotor is telling us about the website. Let's try again. Okay, now the focus is here. In general, it was quite good navigating with the keyboard. So this is a voiceover rotor. Let's take a look. When the user wants to navigate via the rotor, if the links are descriptive on their own. Go to homepage, about, community. So these are weird. These are the socials. They do not work with the screen reader when navigating via the rotor. And to learn more, we already discussed. We know that there are no landmarks. At least it's able to go to the form element using the screen reader. And there is only one button. The images, when navigating by the images, now we can find the accessible name of the socials, but the name should be on the link already, because users are expecting that we're using the links to navigate and not the images. Yeah. So this would be for the voiceover testing. Let's check this element again. So even though there's a title, the reason could be that with the raw image, that is the name. So the title is an element as an element, also as an attribute, depending on how you use it, which is not that good supported by screen readers. And having, in this case, if the screen reader puts out this, we should add it in our label, connect to on our Twitter page to fix this issue. So last but not least, I would like to show you an excerpt of an accessibility audit. It's just a small template. I added an audit overview, so who I did the audit for. You can add the company's name inside, or in this case, I added the website development team because maybe I am also an employee of this company, with which testing methodology I used, text source manual keyword, and screenreader testing, and which page I was testing, my testing environment. This is very important because I cannot simply say, yeah, everything worked fine, because then this would mean it works fine on my machine, but there are different users, different combinations they are using. Also, they are not always updated, so I'm using the latest macOS system, which is automatically means the latest Safari, and also automatically has the latest voiceover, while there are different combinations. You maybe use the latest Windows, but Chrome is, you didn't update it for a long time, and also maybe not in VDA or JAWS, depending on which screen reader you are using. So for a real audit, this would not be enough. You have to test at least also Chrome on Microsoft, Chrome and NVDA, and Chrome and JAWS, I think, is the most common version, and combination, or Firefox and NVDA, or maybe vice versa. But these would be at least the 3 things you should test to be on a safer side. Then you for the company you're testing, you can also generate a summary, making it clear from the beginning how many issues are there. So this is maybe visually more appealing. Maybe there's also a color context issue. Here I'm not sure, because here is always something you should test before using it, showing how many issues are there. So this is only excerpts, they're not all the issues we talked about, and then listed below, like very detailed. We had the missing heading number 1. It is a best practice. This is not WCAG criteria, but still something they should fix. Why the importance of it? So what's the problem with it, and who is affected, and who benefits when you fix it, and also suggest how to fix it, or if the developer wants to learn more about it, put in a link where they can read more about heading level 1. The same goes for a level AA criteria. You can put the success criteria, so the developer can also look into more detail if they are interested, or if they need to, and make the list on and on with all the findings you had. Yeah, I think this is a quite good overview you can give your client when doing an audit. And also, maybe do not fix this header, make it scrollable. It may be pretty, but it's annoying. Yeah, this would be it, I would say. It was very interesting, all the findings you shared with me. Also, the way of thinking, or why you thought this could be a problem or this could not be a problem. It's also interesting how you would now decide which issues are maybe easy fix. So do you give it into the next sprint because it only takes 1 or 2 days to fix, or do you say this is such a large issue, we need at least 3 weeks to fix it, but it's critical, so there are users who can really not go to the website because the cookie banner that cannot be closed, so they cannot perceive anything of the website. So this would be a really critical issue. This should be fixed immediately, even if it takes 3 weeks. This is something you can suggest to the client, or leave it to them, and the project manager would have to decide together with the lead developer, so they better understand what's possible within a certain time. So in the end, I want to thank you all for sticking with me 10 months talking about accessibility from the beginning, from you do not know what accessibility even means or what A11Y stands for, to doing your own audit. I really hope that my webinar series made accessibility and how you could write code better, more clear, and more interesting also. and more fun, I hope. So I'm a big thank you to everyone who came again and again. So there was also one attendee who stuck with me the most, and that's why I want to do a giveaway and send some merch to the person. It would be Cafe G, and yeah, I hope you send me your address so I can send you GDT merch. Thank you everyone, and have a great evening, and yeah, see you soon.